Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Roger. And it's a really pleasure to have this wonderful opportunity to talk. And as you know, this is a COLCI Coach's Corner. And the Coach's Corner means when the coach gets cornered, or, or when the client is cornered. Either way, you can interpret it either way. Ultimately, when somebody's in a corner, you feel trapped. And life situations are such, sometimes you feel, well, we don't have any way to find out answers. And in this segment, we have been talking about various tools, particularly related to the coaching. As we know, the process of coaching is such that, it gives us an idea about who we are, tap into our own strengths, and reflecting on that, and then finding out what the answers are, and then dividing them into small steps. We have done that in previous talk about how we can do a little bit of small steps at a time and go forward. But Roger, every so often, it seems that the situation is rather too big to handle, or we don't have any answers, and we may or may not have proper support, and the motivations go up and down about moving forward. And the whole idea about the emotional drag that occurs because of all these things that are happening, that can go in a southward way. And so, do you have some ideas, and how do we do this, and how do we handle to maintain ourselves, in that mode
Sure.
that we can succeed? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a beautiful question. It's something that's just ubiquitous. It's everywhere. The most, shall we say, disciplined people in the world go through periods where their capacity to fulfill on what they've elected to pursue gets derailed. Even the most disciplined and the luckiest all come under the influence of the complexity of, what do we want to call that? History, circumstances, that which comes and goes, the things that are unpredictable in our lives. So what we can investigate is the extent to which one can either self-motivate, or in the absence of the ability to self-motivate, to create a context in which there's helpers. We can call those, in coaching, we call that an accountability buddy or an accountability partner. And so let's just start with the whole idea of, like, well, what can a person do? Whether they're a coach working with a person, or just a person in the world who may eventually decide to be a coach, or even just a person in the world who's trying to navigate their life. So the first thing is to have consciously elected to, shall we say, imagine the possibility. And that's the easy part, right? That's the funnest part. That's kind of like making ourself into what we call Santa Claus, and having Santa Claus ask us, well, what would you like to do? Or what would you like to have happen? And we can dream there. Then, in the classic context of making progress, we have to move beyond dreaming. And so that's to have a plan. Sometimes we call it a holistic life plan. And in Circle of Life, we have an entire methodology, a system for how to be able to make a personal, holistic life plan. So having an imagination and being sort of, shall we say, starstruck or dreaming, and then to begin to move towards making that big idea into something doable. And we've talked about goals and action steps and so forth. So what happens when we have a sense of what we want to accomplish, and then circumstances arise? Well, the first thing is to be on a team or have a team or a community. So the key words here would be community or team. What is the power of that? Well, when we make a declaration about our own personal, shall we say, intentions, remember we go from the big heavenly idea to how is that associated with our purpose, and how does our purpose funnel down into an intention, and how does our intention become a goal, and how does our goal become a set of action steps? So once we've got in our mind a holistic life plan or a set of action steps, what happens when we get derailed and by every kind of circumstance, simple stuff, emotional stuff, historic stuff, stuff in the marketplace, family occurrences, shifts in the working environment, all of those things can come up. And it really helps to have somebody else who knows what it is that you're hoping to do. And so that's either having a coach or having a team or a community. And all of those are eligible. And in all of the great wisdom traditions, there's the whole idea of the tribe, or in Buddhism, for instance, it's called the Sangha, a group of people who agreed to help each other remember, or we could call it an accountability group. So that's the biggest tool. That's the most powerful tool, is to have an idea about where you want to go, and then to tell somebody that you want to accomplish that, so that person can then ask you, how's it going? And then you can say, well, I'm off track, I'm lost, or you can say, I'm really on track, and this can happen with a family member, a friend, or a coach, or other team members. And then what happens if the circumstances are such that we lose touch with our community or our team, and we're kind of on our own? Because as long as we stay in touch with the team or the group or the accountability group or the Sangha or whatever we want to call that, we're going to continually be called back, no matter how depressed we become or no matter how distracted we become. There will be someone there who knows what we said we decided to do to help us come aright. In the absence of that, let's say you're the coach and you get sidetracked.
Right.
How do you manage that?
Right.
And there's two pieces to that. One is that you re-energize, and the other is that you have some kind of accountability, with another coach.
Right.
Maybe you don't meet with all the time, but someone who can support you in remembering, because what we're doing is we're taking these high ideas and trying to fit them into a life that they didn't fit into so far. So that's like a big lift.
Right.
To make something happen that hasn't happened already.
Yes,
So let's go to the energy. That's going to be nutrition, rest, stress management, exercise, breath practice, meditation. How do we re-energize ourselves? And so that's when we get to things like mind-body practice. Probably the person who's the most likely to self-correct is going to be the person who has cultivated a personal practice. So that's going to be body practice, breath practice, mind practice, massage practice. Individuals who have such a practice, and that doesn't mean they're going to a class. That means they have a practice. That's a set of tools that we can rely on to support us in reeling ourselves back onto the center of our commitment to ourselves.
Right. Now, I think I love the whole thing that you started out with, is the tapping the inner strength and then motivation to create a dream focus and see where the people want to go. And then you went into a nice set of outline of our steps and everything, that sort of removed all the distractions. And then that was a very nicely arranged steps and then how to proceed. But then the thing I really liked about the next step that you said was the fact that even if that happens, somebody else, the sangha or the support structure around a person is very crucial. And I love that part because, and then you said about the coaches, even the coaches need coaches. And so a good coach is a coach who is coached by somebody else because all of us carry blind spots and coaches also have blind spots. And so when we look at each other's blind spot or somebody else, if there's particularly in a group coaching, as you have taught us before, it removes all the blind spots in a mental field. And the field is 360 degrees. It removes a lot of, it sheds light on all these areas. So you've taught us all that, and it's fantastic view. But then the last thing that you also said was that in order to re-energize, uh, only person who cultivates, I love the word, the cultivation, only person who cultivates. And the program, therefore, I just want to make sure, plug into the whole idea about what we are doing here, is the fact that the Circular Life Coach Institute has launched is a combination of first phase and the second phase. The first phase we're launching is that of the first part that we've been talking about, the steps and tapping into the inner strength and moving forward to come up with some of the solutions that they can, people can do for themselves with additional support from a coach or an organization such as COLCI. And then the next step that we have is somebody who wants to help others and becomes a coach. But they also need to be re-energized at times, remotivated at times to maintain that high level of emotional stability and strength. Let's put that, the strength. And to do that, cultivation. So cultivation of body mind practices. You mentioned nutrition, you mentioned other things. So what I'd like you to do is maybe for the audience to share a little bit of a practice, just maybe a sample of a practice today, uh, to to just experience that, if you would mind doing that, because this is all, as I understand it, is part of the training anyway. People get trained and people get exposed to that through this training, so they understand. So if you don't mind sharing some, it would be wonderful.
Oh, yeah, I think probably the easiest thing to do is just let's stay where we are rather than being in this chair, though. Let me get a stool. And let's just do a very, very, you can imagine yourself in your life, or you can imagine yourself as a coach being with your client. And so the client is complaining, yeah, I love my goal, and I've always wanted to do this, but it's obviously I've never done it yet. So it's something that's a little harder for me, and I'm stumbling, whether it's my self-esteem, whether it's my energy, whether it's I've decided that maybe that's not a goal that I can reach right now. Any of those really is there's so many different ways that a person can think that they want to accomplish something and then find that it's just not time yet, or it needs to be modified. And people kind of panic, right? Because if you're the client of a coach, you will have said to yourself, I want to use my time with this coach wisely. And so I'm going to set a goal and I'm going to fulfill it. And darn it, I'm going to go on to the next thing. And now you're back with the coach and you're panicking because of the fact that you didn't do the thing that you thought you could do. And that's why we call it a fail-safe system, right? So we can imagine the coach decides, like, okay, now let's see, what could we do to calm this person down and bring them back into alignment with their highest sense of self and so forth. And of course, we want to give a lot of forgiveness and say, fail-safe system. We want to just chant all the great ideas for how to to create a moment where this person can relax and stop judging themselves. And so we want to interrupt the pattern. And so there's lots of ways to do it. And one of the ways is to do this. We'll say, well, let's just stop with this whole conversation and turn ourselves to self-care. And because the person is in a relationship with a coach who knows about self-care, this will not be the first time that that has happened. That will have happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So we can choose from a long list of different things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's do a little tiny bit of massage. Usually people feel like their neck is stiff and so forth. So let's do a little massage by taking one hand, either hand, and go to the other side and use the tips of your fingers to press and release and press and release, and then move yourself around. And it turns out that most massage can be done on oneself. We have the idea that we need somebody who's trained in massage, but if you just reach like we've just done, and then massage here and there, you're probably going to find an area which is a little more sore. So then focus on that point and press and press and press and press, and take a deep breath and exhale slowly. And one of the ways to get the even greater benefit of a deep breath is to make a little sound like a sigh of relief. So take a deep breath and then exhale with a little sigh of relief, like, oh. And already we start to feel a little better. And then let's do the same thing on the other side. And by the way, I reached for my elbow there. Why? Well, because if I want to reach back a little further, I push up on my elbow, and now I can maybe find an even more sore spot. And notice that I'm moving my head around. So one of the easiest ways to get the best benefit from self-applied massage is to move the part of the body that you're massaging. And so the head is connected to all these muscles around the scapula. And so while you're pressing and taking deep breaths and letting them out slowly, then let's do the sigh of relief, big breath in. And then place your hands and relax and just rest there for a moment. And if you're really attentive, you could probably even feel that there's an effect from what we just did. Now let's do one more thing, which is take a deep breath in and then hold it for a moment. And then let your breath out very, very slowly through your nose is preferred, very slowly. And we're going to do this 2 more times. So one more deep breath in. Exhale very, very slowly, or even hold your breath for a moment and then exhale very, very slowly. And then one more time, deep breath in. Hold for a moment. Exhale very slowly, and turn your attention inward and notice what you're feeling. Now, we won't linger there for this brief video, but the idea is that with a little bit of massage and a couple of deep breaths, we can alter a person's internal environment and even, in many cases, alter a person's mood. And so how do we get back on course? We figure out how to alter our internal environment and alter our mood. And if a person is cultivated enough to be able to remember to do a little self-massage and a couple of deep breaths, or any other number of kinds of practices like yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong, one can shift one's feeling and then get back on track. If
Yeah.
the person is in a relationship with a coach, then the coach helps the person to learn how to do these things. Now, how long does it take for an average citizen to actually get how powerful the benefit is? Well, some people will get that right away. They'll say, oh, wow, this is so palpable. The change that I just made in myself in a few minutes, like for no extra cost, is worthy of pursuit. Others who are fairly habituated need to have a coach to remind them, because even though they may feel the benefit of doing the practice when they're with the coach, it's very likely that they won't believe that they can feel that on their own. It takes time to get up the learning curve of how powerful these practices are and how easy and accessible they are. It's kind of a tragedy, but that's just the human condition.
Yeah, Roger, that was fantastic. In fact, just a couple of experiences that as you were leading this through, this is a live session, and I'm also new at all this, so I also feel tense. And the tenseness always comes, and it always rests from the head. It goes down to the shoulder immediately. And this is the area that becomes, as I'm told, and at least in medical science, I'm told that stress is stored in the muscles, in different muscles in the body. And this felt so good when we went through that one. And then the next step you did was also even beautiful, because that it comes out of the muscle where it's supposed to go. It's supposed to get out of the body somewhere. And so you did the breathing. So it was so natural, and I felt so relieved, and it was so wonderful practice. And I can, for a simple practice like that, for people who are getting coached or maybe going through life situations, or even a coach who is finding difficult situations for themselves, I really appreciate you leading us through that one. And for the audience and for anybody who gets more interested, there's tons and tons of stuff that Roger and Rebecca have put in this course, along with some contribution that I learned from them. So we have some videos there, and so you're welcome to check out the webinar that we have. It's called COLCI.org webinar, and you can go onto the website and look it up. And if there's any questions that you have, please write to me on my Facebook. I'll connect you to the right tool and right direction to lead you through that. So it was wonderful having you today, Roger, and I really appreciate that. There's one person on here, Harish, that you met.
Hello, Harish.
So he's saying, let me see what he's saying. Roger, I cannot believe it's telepathy. Since last night, my left neck is very tight and muscle, and maybe wrong sleep. And you led him through the through the practice here. So he's already, true support is needed, is what he said.
Yeah, well, thanks to everybody for coming and visiting us today, and let's get together again.
Sure. Thank you very much, Roger, for spending this wonderful time with us, and we'll see you next time.